We've all got that pair of jeans in the cupboard that, you know,
gonna fit in.
we're not going to give that to our daughters. We're going to wear that one day, because you think like an orange is probably about 12 grams of sugar per orange.
Wow.
So that's a heck of a lot of sugar. People will start the day off with croissant and wonder why they're hungry at 10 o'clock. You know, I was grew up in the 80s in London. The commodity was all about looks, you know, and what you could achieve from your looks. They don't really want to be on a lot of pharmaceuticals, or I don't want to go on statins, or, you know, that type of thing, or they're done with their hot flashes. We're very sort of scared about fats. The whole thing about LDL is like blaming the firefighter for the fire. Well, I don't have any chickens anymore.
Oh, what happened to them? You ate them?
I had them for no.
Welcome to the Visionary podcast, where we discuss science, medicine, physical health, and mental well-being. So we have this illustration here with us titled Insulin Resistance. Could you please have a look and explain to us in simple English the process here? What happens step by step? How can high carb diet affect me?
Yeah. It's interesting as well because it's high carb that you've got here, because a lot of people only think that insulin resistance or diabetes comes from excess sugar, but it is also excess starch. So here you've got a guy eating a burger, which has got bread in it, and chips, which is starch, and then probably a milkshake or Coca-Cola, which is a sugar. So the two behave in exactly the same way within the body. Once you eat starch or sugar, your body converts it to glucose. Okay. And the glucose is in the blood. The body doesn't really like too much glucose swimming around in the blood because it causes inflammation, sticky on the outside, sticky on the inside. And so the pancreas will then come up and go, hey, I need to deal with this sugar in this bloodstream, so I'm going to produce insulin. So insulin will be secreted, and insulin works like a lock and key. So it basically will take the sugar or the glucose out of the bloodstream and lock it away into three main areas. So the brain, the muscles, and the liver. And that's really what happens if you're having too much demand on insulin. Then the cells become desensitized or resistant.
And that's a bad thing.
And that's a bad thing, yeah, because you want it to be sensitive so it can produce insulin, pull the sugar out of the bloodstream, and then convert it to glycogen and store it in like the liver or what have you. And that's why you can get sort of fatty liver as well, because fatty liver comes from, once it's stored in the liver, it's converted to triglycerides because it's an energy source. And that's sort of also causes what we call non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which also can lead to diabetes as well.
So this is the liver. What will happen to my brain and my muscles when we store glucose?
So brain is like glucose. However much we can be a keto fan, the brain loves glucose first. So the brain would definitely enjoy the glucose.
Oh yeah. I would. A croissant. That would make me happy.
Yeah. And then the muscles, again, stored as glycogen, and then hopefully utilized, with exercise or movement to dissipate and break that glycogen down as energy and give that muscle the energy to move. The liver is a little bit more problematic. So the energy stored in the liver will be converted to triglycerides if not sort of excessively used. And that can then cause a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, potentially.
So people like me on a strict keto diet, where do I get my energy?
Well, you're getting it from ketones. So if you're not giving your brain glucose, which is its number one priority of energy source, it will basically convert the muscle deposit of your body, so the adipose tissue and also the visceral fat that's possibly within the body, and convert that into a ketone, and that will be what the brain will use instead.
So there is a possibility that because I'm on a keto diet, I'm losing a bit of muscles?
I wouldn't say that necessarily. A muscle sort of the construct of muscle is very much protein led. So if you're not having enough protein, then that you could be losing muscle mass, which is what we call sarcopenia, and it comes with age. As we get older, we lose more muscle mass and we become weaker and frailer. So you definitely need to make sure and ensure that you're having the right levels of protein.
What's the right level of proteins?
So I would say, at least one gram per kilogram. If you're sort of plus sort of 45, I would say more like 1.2 grams per kilogram. And if you're sort of like a training and you're very athletic, I would probably add more than 1.4 maybe grams.
That's a lot. How would I manage with all that? Assuming that I eat normally 3 meals
a day. Yeah, so you want to aim for your meals to look like 25 grams, 25 to 30 grams of protein within each meal.
Is that a piece of chicken?
So it's always really interesting because a lot of people get confused about what protein looks like. So a lot of people think, oh yeah, I've bought 125 grams of chicken. That must be 125 grams of protein, but it's not.
The protein content is less.
Yeah,
right?
the protein in 125 grams of chicken is approximately about 24 grams of protein.
Okay.
The rest of that weight is made up of fat and also water. But you're going to get about 24 grams of protein in that.
That's what I need to read the label to know, right?
Well, yeah, that would definitely help. I mean, with my patients, I'll send them like a table that has the most, purchased protein options, whether it's nuts and seeds, whether it's animal protein, whether it's eggs. Like eggs are 6 grams of protein per egg.
I've recently discovered that peanuts are very rich in protein.
Yeah.
Mad rich, 27 or 28 grams.
Lovely. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah,
for vegan people.
Be mindful of nuts, generally, especially peanuts, because if they're not stored correctly, then they can grow mold, and the mold can be a little bit damaging to us, can cause a little bit of inflammation. So I tend to, if I'm going to go for peanuts, I tend to go organic with peanuts, and the same with coffee beans actually. So I use a really lovely product. Again, I'm not an ambassador, but Exhale is a product of coffee bean that I buy because they literally handpick the beans to make sure they haven't got any mold growing in them.
We'll add the link in the description, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a really lovely brand actually.
So that's the protein content, 1.2 ideally, or even more if I'm perimenopausal.
1.2 is good for perimenopause. If you're athletic and if you're training quite hard, then so breakfast. So if you're thinking. It depends on your weight as well. So, and also actually with weight loss, what I tend to do is I focus the kilograms on their goal weight rather than their existing weight, and then calculate their need for protein based on their goal weight. So because we don't want to eat too much protein, because again, too much protein, the excess energy will potentially get converted to glucose and glycogen and be stored as fat as well. So because your body can only metabolize about 25 to 30 grams of protein at one sitting anyway.
And that's one portion of chicken or meat or salmon or whatever. So does this mean that I have to include, in a way ideally, some protein in every meal to hit this?
Because also what protein does, and fats and fiber, is that they put a lid on the release of the carbohydrate. So it's like if I was to have apple, which is a carbohydrate, it's fructose, I would have it with nut butter or I'd have it with Greek yogurt, because the fats and the protein from that item of the yogurt or the nuts will slow down the release of the fructose from the apple.
So if I'm desperate and I do crave an apple, I would eat it with some fat.
Yeah, ideally, or protein, or both. So like a peanut butter will have fat and protein in it.
This will slow down or decrease the insulin.
It dampens the release of the sugars from even like a fruit. I mean, and I'm not demonizing fruit at all. I think, and certainly having the apple with the skin also slows down the release, because it's just, you're keeping the fiber. Versus, we always have a conversation about orange juice, right? So should I have orange juice, Annie? Well,
okay, the verdict.
Even if I was to and I was upping my vitamin C levels for my daughter last week because she wasn't very well, and so not like normal mothers, I'm like, right, okay, I've got to go out. Went out and bought a bag of oranges, came back and squeezed them all on my little squeezer, and she's like, why did you not just buy a carton of? Well, I want to know what's in it basically, and I want it, if you're going to have this sugar, you're going to have, and it's going to be vitamin C, but it is still. I probably squeezed 4 oranges for 1 glass. She would never have eaten 4 oranges.
No,
right?
So but you wanted the vitamin C.
Yeah, but that's a lot of sugar, because you think like an orange is probably about 12 grams of sugar per orange. Wow. So that's a heck of a lot of sugar. Yeah. And if you're drinking it, you've got nothing slowing it down. So it's just, straight into the bloodstream.
Yeah, so you recommend if we do eat fruit, it has to be the whole fruit. At least you get the fiber.
Whole food, the whole fruit, the whole grain, the whole food.
Everything.
Yeah, the whole food.
Hi, I'm Hala, your host today. We'd love your support. A quick subscribe to this channel would mean a lot to us and help us grow. We may be small now, but with your support, we can achieve something amazing together. Thank you. I don't usually give my child, Olivia, fruit, only berries, because they're low in carbs, but it just happened that we have nectarine at home, and she did something so cheeky. She said to me, "Mommy, cut them, not peel them. Cut. What do you mean cut them? Just cut them." Okay, I cut them for her this morning. I was just busy still for an investigation. What she did is she held the quarter in her teeth and like children do cheekily, and sucked the juice. What good is that? You took the sugary stuff and you left the fibre, but what do you say? Okay, love.
I think she'll never forget that. That'll be part of her childhood. And every time she lives her life with nectarines in her life, she'll always remember that special experience that she had with nectarines.
I was not impressed.
Yeah, but you know what? She's eating, it's from a fresh fruit. So, you know, whatever, you know, it's fine. Maybe you can encourage her to.
Fine,
I mean, my daughter eats eggs, but she never eats the white. You know, and she's 23.
And that's the protein.
Yeah. Well, it's all. You know, it's just like, what can you do? You know, there's. You know, you can do your best. But the fact is, you're giving her, you know, such a good start in life anyway. So you're not just opening up a bag of sweets, which is, you know, people do, and that's fine in moderation, though.
Okay.
In moderation.
That's lovely. So the last bit of this illustration, hunger and cravings.
So the thing is about eating foods. I mean, I will have, let's say people will start the day off with croissant and wonder why they're hungry at 10 o'clock.
Yes.
You know, because there's no fats, there's no protein, there's no carbohydrate, there's no fibre to slow the release of that starch. You're going to get that insulin response. Insulin will come in, deal with the actual excess sugar, put it into the systems, brain, liver, muscles, and then you then get like a crash, literally like I'm hungry.
It's
like
a
craving.
spike.
Yeah, it's a spike. It's like a roller coaster, and so you get this craving, and then usually you then reactively eat, and then you choose something that's got quick releasing starch or sugar in it again, and then you go back up again, and it's like this kind of vicious cycle of like.
Can this explain the energy crash that we get at 3 p.m.?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So what is the alternative?
Is to make sure that when you're having your meal, you look at it and you go, do I have my macronutrients on my plate? Do I have a good level of protein? And we talked about that, between 20 and 30 grams. Do I have a good level of fibre? And I do have some healthy fats. And if the healthy fat comes in the form of a delicious salad dressing that you've made, not bought, that's basically olive oil, lemon juice, salt and pepper, so it's not difficult, then that's going to slow the release of any of the carbohydrate in that meal, and it's going to balance that blood sugar levels out. So you're not going to get that energy crash because you've got the energy releasing slowly and carefully throughout that afternoon.
Yeah. Sustainable.
Yeah, sustainable.
And along with that, I will have a more sustainable mood.
Oh, yeah,
well.
because so the thing is, when you have these roller coasters of insulin, you're stressing the adrenal system. Every time you're getting these spikes and then crashes, you're stressing the adrenal system, and then the adrenal system is producing cortisol every time you stress the adrenal system, because the body doesn't like to be in a stressful place. It likes to be
constant.
Homeostasis, right? We aim for homeostasis. We aim for like balance. And if it's not balanced, because we're craving and crashing and spiking and crashing and spiking and crashing, we are stressing our adrenal system as well, which is when we get hungry and we get like starving and like, just give me anything. I'll have anything, or getting aggressive, or feeling exhausted and
grumpy,
or grumpy,
temperamental.
Yeah. So because the adrenal system is linked to your energy system.
Yes.
It's all connected.
So the alternative is, the way I understand it, protein on the plate, fiber, good quality fiber, a bit of healthy fat. I would say. How would you define healthy fat?
So like a monounsaturated fatty acid, or like
is that olive oil
and muffers. So
what kind of oils?
Yeah, so olive oils, like a good extra virgin rapeseed even, like a sesame seed oil. So some sort of or nuts and seeds, or like you said, the earlier avocados,
yes.
or fatty fish, where you're going to get the fatty acids as well as like the protein. So nature has made a lot of these foods very easy and accessible that are perfectly combined.
Yes.
So you don't just get the one. So with a nut, you're going to get the protein, you're going to get the fiber, and you're going to get the healthy fat, all in one.
All in one.
Perfect.
Nuts are superfood, and that's my sin. I overdose on nuts like mad. I take everything to extreme.
Everything in moderation, for sure.
Moderation,
Portion control is important always. Nothing too much of a good thing is going to be too much of a good thing.
Yeah. You say portion control. What do you think of the calories in, calories diet, our diet?
Yeah.
Does this work for people?
I think when it comes to whether it works, it will work in the sense if they are becoming more mindful and in touch with what they are eating and they are tracking.
Let's say they are trying to lose weight.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of calorie counting personally, because I think you can have an avocado that's 250 calories versus a Mars bar that's 250 calories, right? So same calories, completely different nutritional density. So people can be very confused, and you can still lose weight, right, on just eating Mars bars. Because if you're restricting your calories, let's say 800 calories a day,
yes.
Which is not ideal and probably not the option to not the choice really, you will lose weight, even if it's just on Mars bars. Yes, okay. Yeah, you will. But the thing is that that's not going to give you any nutrition. So you won't probably sustain that for very long, because what you're going to do is you're going to ask insulin to come in and deal with all that excess sugar, and that's going to cause you, potential to overeat at some point later on anyway. So it's very hard to sustain that kind of diet. You wouldn't sustain that kind of diet.
And weight loss is very different than health.
I come across it all the time. So a lot of my patients will be focused on weight loss and women in particular, and they're always harking back to what size they were when they were 20, when they were 30.
That's me,
right? And we all love that. We've all got that pair of jeans in the cupboard that
gonna fit in.
We're not going to give that to our daughters. We're going to wear that one day. And so no, the reality is that number one, were we healthy at 20 or 30? When we're, in my 20s, I spent my whole time, not eating a huge amount and going clubbing all the time. Was I a size sort of whatever, nothing? Yes, I was. But was I healthy? Probably not. My 30s, I was recovering, having babies and recovering from childbirth twice, So, I was all up and down, but then I lived in New York, so I had a lot of influence on being a size 0. So, did I lose weight too quickly then? Yes, I did. Did I suffer from it? Yes, I did. I lost some of my hair. So it's like we can, what is health really at the end of the day? And that's really my focus when it comes to all my patients' health, but particularly women's health. And what I talk to them about is, let's just look at why do I want to be a stone heavier? Why do I want to be a size 8 again? Is that healthy for me today? What does my body need in my 50s, in my 60s, in my 70s? Is it the same as what it needed when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s? And the answer is probably no.
Took sense into me.
And you've got to be realistic, and you've got to be, you've got to love yourself, from every part of you. I think a lot of women don't. They focus. I mean, I was brought up in the 80s in London. The commodity was all about looks, and what you could achieve from your looks. And I think we live in 2025 now. It shouldn't be about what we look like.
It should be a different perspective completely.
Yeah. And you see it all the time with women, with Botox and fillers and, trying to fight the aging process. And then you get women like Kate Winslet who just go, no, forget about it. I look great as what I look like, and that's the end of it. It's about taking care of yourself on the inside, and then you will glow on the outside anyway, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I read, or maybe it was a video on YouTube talking about the order of eating food, that supposedly if we start by a kind of food, a type of food, and end with another, this will decrease the insulin spike. Is this valid?
Yeah, absolutely. I use it with my patients. It's called nutrient sequencing. And it's basically where, if you think about your digestive system, it's almost like a sink. So it's almost shaped like that. And so if you start with, so this is why we get bread offered to us in the restaurant. So it's a deliberate choice that the restaurateur will make to offer us bread, which is a refined carbohydrate, because we'll have that first. That won't have anything to slow down the release of its starch. So later on in the meal, we will be craving our sweet.
Ooh,
so it's a way of them
sneaky.
Yeah, but
so make you hungry.
Give us the craving to go, actually, I do have a sweet tooth. I do fancy that. It's because you probably started with bread. So the way that nutrient sequencing works is that if you fill that first part up with fibre, okay, that will slow down any release, because that's literally physically acts like a filter in your system to slow down the release. And then if you add protein and then the fats on top, and then you go with the fibre, the carbohydrate, like the pasta or what have you. So
start with the fibre, which is vegetables?
So a lot of people, because we want to eat the meal as it is, okay, so it's beautifully, we go to a fabulous restaurant and they've made the effort to make a beautiful meal. Start with a starter that is like a green leafy vegetable. In fact, in France, they do it as carte blanche. It's like they always start their meals with a green, lovely dressed leafy vegetable, which also has olive oil in it, which is the fat, and it's also dressed with a vinegar, and vinegar helps with glucose response. So we start with like a green leafy vegetable, and then that creates that sort of filtering system that slows down the release of all the other foods that go on top of it.
Okay, and why do I want to slow down the release of other food? Would this
because
slow down insulin?
Yeah, it would slow down the insulin response.
Okay. So start with fibre, then
protein and fats. But if you're combining it with the carb, like the potato or the chip or whatever it is, that's okay, because you've started with that. You create like a mesh-like kind of situation that will slow down the release of anything that goes on top of it. And actually, the best person on Instagram is Glucose Goddess. So we love the glucose goddess.
Jessie,
she's fabulous. And she promotes nutrient sequencing all the time. She promotes using acetic acid, which is in vinegar, to help slow down the release of to slow down the insulin response. And also macronutrient combining, so putting cloves, not leaving your carbohydrates naked. She always refers to that. So like having your apple but having it with a bit of nut butter. That's the kind of thing. And all of that will definitely enable you to enjoy. I mean, my daughter and I, we will make these stuffed medjool dates. I buy mine from Palestine. They are the best. And they're medjool dates, and we put nut butter in there. She likes hazelnut. I like a little bit of peanut. Yeah, and then I use the best chocolate, because I'm very fussy with my chocolate. I like a chocolate that doesn't have any soy lecithin in it, which is something that's used in many, many chocolates these days, and I don't need that in my life. So I'll use a product, usually there's a Glaswegian brand that I buy called Bare Bones. It's delicious. And I dip them in and let them sit. And that will be our little Snickers bar, basically.
Wow. So if I need a dessert or a treat, my pudding would ideally be at the end of the meal.
Yeah.
When everything
always at
is...
the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, always at the end.
And that's what we do, right? We have the fruit or the dessert at the very end.
Yeah, we do, because we've got all that sort of mesh of the everything else we've eaten prior to slow down the release of the carbohydrate.
Okay. That's a brilliant trick.
Yeah. And also with fruit, because it's quite fermentable, I tend to eat fruit during the day, not in the evening. Because again, fruit does have fructose in it. That's quite a lot of sugar. And again, where's the energy going when you're sitting watching a bit of TV of an evening?
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and also it ferments, so it's better to have fruit during the day.
Annie, you also do kitchen cleanse.
Yes.
As part of your services, you physically go into people's kitchens and rummage through their stuff with the intention of auditing what they have.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So I'd go in and I would basically, these are people that will tend to be quite busy people, and they know that they've got the treat drawer or the snack cupboard, but it doesn't end up being just a snack cupboard, to be fair. It ends up being everything. But sometimes they just need, it's like someone going in and kitchen and wardrobe cleansing you. So getting rid of those size 24 jeans that you're never going to get into again,
I still have hope.
But it's and I don't do many of them, to be fair, because I think it's quite personal, and I don't think everyone always wants someone going into their kitchen and ditching all their foods.
Do you feel that people can sometimes get protective or defensive of their privacy?
I think if they've paid for me to go and do that, then they are up for the challenge of me doing it. I think it's like talking to someone about their stools. Like, that can be very uncomfortable in reality. But if someone's coming to see me, they need help, and they're paying for me, then they're okay to talk about it. However uncomfortable it may make them feel. And it's the same with kitchen cleanse, really. I think, once I'm there, they want to change, and sometimes it's hard to let go of things.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I'm never doing it in the sense of just take it all out and not give you an alternative. It's always about, this is what you can put instead. This is what you can eat instead. These are better options for you.
So do you think there is a healthy alternative or option to everything that's not healthy?
No, I don't think so. I think people really magically want me to find that answer, and they really want to say, they really want. Unfortunately, I don't have a food business, so I can't produce my medjool dates dipped in chocolate for everybody else. or my homemade cookies that have got flaxseed and whatnot in it. I make banana ice cream, chocolate banana ice cream, all the time at home for a Sunday lunch. And honestly, it tastes exactly like chocolate ice cream, but you can't sell that. You've got to actually physically make it, and people don't always want to make the effort either. But I think when people come to me, they tend to come to me because I'm a last resort. They don't really know what else to do, and they don't really want to be on a lot of pharmaceuticals, or I don't want to go on statins, or that type of thing, or they're done with their hot flashes.
They sometimes try to convince you of the validity of the food they have.
Yeah, I think, especially when they've got children, and they go, well, I don't want to eat it, but it's okay for my kids. And then we have to have a conversation about that.
It's not okay, but there's nothing we can do about it.
No.
Really, it's the whole culture.
It is a culture, but it's if you're willing to sort of listen to me about changing it. I had a potential patient that called me yesterday, actually. She's got 2 teenage sons, they're both boarding, and she's really concerned about their nutrition. And she just feels like she's tried everything, and they're not always there all the time, but when they are there, she doesn't really know what to cook for them anymore. And when she does cook for them something healthy, she ends up throwing it away. So it's like, and I'm not a magician, that's for sure. I can't make everything that's difficult go away, but I can offer hope, and I can offer ideas, and I can, I can try to think around the problem and try and find a solution that's going to help that person or help that situation. Can't promise it's always going to work, but
it's very tricky.
We strive because it's very emotive food.
Of the school system,
Yeah.
like they do regularly every 2 months or something a donut sale right after school on Fridays.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a wonderful school. I hope I don't sound like a bitch criticizing the school, but a donut, and it's all colorful and lovely, and all the children having the donuts, and Olivia wants the donuts. I mean, I gave her that a few times, and I decided, okay, I have to look out for these days, so at least I show up with something for her to eat, something that's half yummy. But then the school decided to do something healthier, which is the fruits. I don't know what to call it. But they sprinkled all the fruit with sugary. It's all colourful and lovely again.
And you don't think fruit is sweet enough,
it's good. You're doing the right thing. It's the direction. But
I mean, the thing is that I was very unpopular when my daughters were at school. They went to a very lovely school in this local area as well, and I was aghast by their tuck shop. And also they had snacks, breaks are always, like you say, brownies and cookies and all sorts of things. And I actually went in there, worked with the head chef, and we changed the tuck shop so it wasn't having these caramel drinks that had like loads of whipped cream in it and all sorts of things, because you've got to nourish that brain. I mean, there's enough distraction going on with the phones and whatnot within a school environment for them not to have the concentration, and that brain needs feeding. That brain needs development. The brain needs fats and healthy protein to grow. So, that was my argument, and I won. And much to my daughter's disapproval, and like, Mom, for goodness sake,
it's an embarrassment.
Yeah, we got because it's also, you got to be careful because you can't have nuts in there because of the nut allergies, and that's fair enough. That's a real issue, and that's a real concern. But it was trying to find alternatives that weren't as laden. It's hard. They don't all exist. I'm not that
brave. I don't want to collide with the system.
Well, I was a nutritionist, so I had a little bit of I had a little bit of weight behind me. So, and they listened to me. But
you're in a place of authority.
I was a little bit, although I'd only just qualified, so I probably wasn't entirely know what I was talking about. But, it's not easy. Yeah.
The kitchen cleanse. What kind of things are hiding in our cupboards and could potentially cause us damage?
Things that are out of date, for number one, which can be a problem. You can buy things and they can sit there for years. People move house and they've still got stuff I even had stuff I had in my cupboard when I moved around here that I had from when I lived in New York. So out of date stuff, 100%. But then just the sort of foods that they feel they're addicted to and they can't avoid, and they've got a dopamine response attached to it or an emotional response attached to it that they feel like they have to have, then we'll work with that. It's very individual. I'm not going to say it's I can't demonize one type of ultra processed food versus another. It's about minimizing, and 80-20 at the end of the day. I will go with popcorn as opposed to like Doritos, for example, as an alternative sort of sweet, salty, crunchy snack. We want the crunch because we were ancestrally Neanderthals, right? And we like that crunch. We like to crunch bones. That's why we like crunch. Okay. So, you want something that is going to replace that texture and that sort of mouthfeel, but is perhaps slightly less processed and, has more attributes to it that will give us more nutrient density.
I always say that there's quality matters. There's carbs and there's carbs. Yeah. There is the colorful donuts that we get packaged that's 6 months old, God knows. And there is the freshly baked pastry or croissant from Sainsbury's. And it's just...
Yeah, I mean, look, there's an amazing patisserie up the road, like a French... there's two actually. There's two really great bakeries in Tunbridge Wells.
Yeah, on the high street.
Yeah, right? Will I once in a while buy an almond croissant? Yes. Why? Because it's made with love. He's mindful in the way he's produced that pastry. And once in a while is once in a while. I think what can also happen is you can restrict and avoid and deny, and then you can make so much food noise about it in your head. Yes. Where you're starting to overthink about it. So I personally never try. If I feel like crisps, I'll have those olive oil ones. If I'll find alternatives, pistachio nuts, something crunchy. So I try and find alternatives. But if I would never want a donut. Like, let's just say that. The last donut I ever had was in New York when I was pregnant with my first child. Donuts, I just think if you would ask me what would be the worst food out there, I would say donut.
Oh, really?
Quite deep fried, carbohydrate, completely laden in sugar.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not good for you. Would I buy it for my daughters once in a while if they really, really wanted it when they were younger? Krispy Kreme, yes. Would I like them eating it? Not really, but I wouldn't deny it because I don't want to make a food. I don't want to make a food noise out of it in their heads. I don't. You know, you've got to be really careful about not creating dysfunctional eating, especially as a nutritionist and especially being a mother of 2 daughters. So, you know, you have to let them make their own decisions eventually, and actually they make really good decisions for themselves now.
Yeah, because they are nutrient poor. Like when you think of honey, dates and other food, fruit obviously included, at least there's a bit of vitamins and minerals in there. There is a healthy fat. But when it comes to treats, that's really there are no vitamins there.
No.
But if I want to get that lovely mouthful of sweetness, and I want a replacement of sugar, what should I use? What would you endorse for me to bake with?
I would bake. I mean, I would use coconut sugar. It's slightly low on the glycemic index to caster sugar. Or I'd use honey. I really like chicory root fiber.
Chicory root fiber?
Yeah, chicory root fiber
sweet?
syrup. Yes, it's like a honey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you should look it up. It's amazing. So that will be drizzled onto porridge. That will be drizzled onto yogurts. That can be cooked with. I really like that. Some people will struggle with alternative sugars like erythritol or xylitol. I don't mind stevia. I like stevia. Usually when I have like any kind of building work done and everyone, you know, the guys will say, oh, can I have tea with 2 sugars? I'm like, okay, I don't have any sugar. So I'll just put stevia in there. They won't even notice the difference. And they never notice the difference.
I remember in the olden days, stevia used to have a slightly bitter taste, but I think production has improved now to produce a really really pure stevia, which is really good. What would you say are your other top kitchen swaps that would make the biggest difference?
Using good oils. So I'm not really a fan of highly processed canola oil. You know, that's from... I don't mind rapeseed if it's sort of like ideally extra virgin rapeseed, real fat, so like a butter. So I don't really like hydrogenated fats, so like a margarine, I would tend to take that out of the kitchen.
How about butter?
Love butter. Butter, yes. Like I literally, my daughter's boyfriend, you know, he was eating, you know, like a utterly butterly, like from the fridge, which is hydrogenated, potentially, and that becomes trans fat. And so I bought him a butter dish and she bought him the butter and now he has butter. And, you know, it's in moderation, but it's real fat and it does what it needs to do. And, you know, we're very sort of scared about fats. You know, we've become, especially since the 80s, there was a lot of data that sort of thought that would cause us cardiovascular disease. And now we have statins, which is, you know, the government are trying to like, you know, put everybody that's post 50 on a statin. In fact, they're thinking about a poly pill at the moment.
Cholesterol?
Yeah, it's cholesterol. And they're thinking about actually producing a poly pill, which has got the statin in there and other sort of heart vasodilators all combined in one pill, rather than just looking at the diet.
So how do you see fat in this equation? The good fat is...
Yeah, I think that LDL is the one that we all have been told to be careful of, but there's a lack of understanding about what the LDL is actually made of. So LDL is made of different densities of the lipoprotein, and majority of the LDL is actually quite a large density and isn't really, well, from what we see in the data, isn't actually harmful. It's only the very small 20% of LDL within that component that is actually quite damaging. But you have to think about it as like, it's almost like the whole thing about LDL is like blaming the firefighter for the fire. So the firefighter goes to the fire, deals with the fire, but it didn't start the fire. And the thing about cholesterol generally is that you got this artery that basically maybe has you've got high blood pressure. That's causing a lot of pressure on the artery. You're maybe eating trans fats that's maybe made the artery slightly more stiff. And then you get like a lesion, like a little cut on the inside of the artery. And that then, you then got all the white blood cells and the immune system will go to that area and sort of go, okay, guys, like let's just, you know, deal with this problem, create a bit of inflammation, because that's how we deal with an issue. But within that process, the bloodstream's still got the cholesterol running through it, just running through it. And they get caught up in the whole situation, the crisis, and then they start to sort of get combined with the neutrophils and all these white blood cells, and they create this little foam. It's called a foam cell, and it's like all this foam, and then it gets stuck to the actual artery on the inside, and it's called a plaque. And then it can potentially cause, a clot or like some sort of, heart event. But they were just hanging around. They weren't really, that wasn't the reason why that happened in the first place. The reason why that happened in the first place was because the lesion was there from the high blood pressure and possibly the stiffening arteries. So it's like...
So for me to wrap my head around this, it's not an immediate causation. It's some sort of circumstances that led to that.
Being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Okay.
Yeah. That's really the way I see cholesterol. And because we need cholesterol to make our hormones are made of cholesterol, our fats, our brain is made of fat, our skin membranes are made of fat, we have fat in, every single part of us. So if we then say, well, let's stop producing cholesterol, let's inhibit that production by having a statin, then what other damage are we doing within our body?
Side effects.
And really, are we addressing why we had that potential effect in the first place? And actually also, I can't remember what the data is now, but statins actually produce only a few percentage of cardiovascular risk anyway. Okay. Like they only reduce a certain level of cardiovascular risk. And also the other thing about most of these medications is that they're all tested on men, not women.
Yes.
So we don't really know how they're going to affect women and women's hormonal production.
So what I understood from you now is that if I have a good diet based on the data I have, the views of well-established nutritionists, and I consume reasonable amounts of fat, but I still have high cholesterol. Should I be fearful of that? Do I need medication or ignore?
I think that, so genetically, some people are more predisposed to having higher cholesterol levels. So if there have been events in that family, and then I would err on the side of caution, yes, I would. And I would consider maybe medicating with statin. But you can dive deeper into the actual LDL that you're producing. By having you can have a more advanced lipoprotein test that looks more at the sort of smaller particles of the LDL. So if it was me and I had high cholesterol and I had a familial issue, I would probably get that test done for myself.
Is this on the NHS?
No.
Okay.
No.
Privately?
Yeah.
Okay.
So so it's not gold standard. So gold standard really would be our just total cholesterol, LDL, HDL, triglyceride test that we have done. But it doesn't look deeper into what is making up that LDL. Is it predominantly more small, highly dense lipoproteins, or is it quite large? And if it's quite large, then data says it's not as damaging, and you don't have to be so fearful.
A lipid profile, is it? Okay.
Yeah, lipid profile.
Because I do have high cholesterol.
Oh, okay.
And I was told by my GP that because of the keto diet, he said to me, lower your eggs and others of that. Otherwise, you can have the statins. But
I know Genova do a
Genova
diagnosis. Okay. I know that they do a cardiovascular test, which will look deeper into that lipoprotein.
Okay. I ignored that.
Yeah,
I ignored. I know it's not. It doesn't sound good, but deep down in having all these vegetables and the good fat and protein, there's no way I would be unhealthy. I
think it's your intuition at the end of the day, and I think if you intuitively know that you're fine. Have you got high blood pressure?
No.
Right.
No.
So that's a risk. Okay. So if you had high cholesterol and then high blood pressure, that would be a risk.
Okay.
But you don't, which means are you going to have a cardiovascular event in the sense of is your arteries going to get some sort of damage done to it, and then the high cholesterol blood is going to get caught up in the mix? Probably not, because you haven't got the high blood pressure in the first place.
Yes.
Because high blood pressure comes with more the actual blood is more viscous, thicker. Yes. So the heart has to work harder to push it around the body. So if you don't have high blood pressure, you don't have any other cardiovascular issues.
I don't, and I work out forcefully without feeling anything. But I did behave when it comes to egg a little bit.
It's a difficult one. I personally, other than I don't demonize eggs myself. When people say should I be careful with the cholesterol in eggs, I think if you're eating the whole egg, then nature kind of does everything it needs to do with the disbursement of that cholesterol that's in that egg. Because it's otherwise you'll go, okay, I'm not going to eat prawns. Because prawns also got quite a lot of high cholesterol. So shrimp does.
All right, let's be a bit positive now. Is there a dream shopping list that you would love for people to follow? what would ideally be on your shopping list?
Yeah. So I like fermented foods. So I would definitely be putting fermented foods on my shopping list, which would be fermented foods are naturally contain good levels of natural probiotics, but they also come with the prebiotics as well. So like sauerkraut or kimchi. I love kimchi. In Asia they tend to eat kimchi every day. It's great for the microbiome. Kefir is like a fermented yogurt or live yogurt. That says clearly it's live yogurt and has some sort of strains in it. So fermented food is always nice to have on the list. Even like sourdough, it's fermented, so it tends to, be much more digestible because the fermentation process digests the gliadin and the various different parts of that wheat that can be quite undigestible for some people. And then, obviously an array of seasonal fruits and vegetables. So at the moment, I've got little boxes of asparagus that are coming to me every week, that purple and green asparagus. So seasonal foods. Like I love fig season when fig season comes around. So it's just like getting excited about what's in season, and then well husband protein. So ideally organic poultry, good grade grass-fed beef. Lamb I wouldn't necessarily go organic because they're living outside. They're having a whirl of a time wherever you buy it from, to be honest with you. You don't see any caged lamb. And then when it comes to fish, yes, you need to be mindful of the mercury content in like the deep sort of swimming fish. So
how do I do that?
So
how do I tell?
It's difficult. I mean, well, tuna is a deep ocean fish, swordfish, that type of thing. So have it in moderation. But the sort of the river fish like the trout and the salmon, I personally like. I buy my trout from chalk stream. It's a chalk stream trout, so it's a farmed fish, but it's actually has the chalk stream passing through the actual farm itself. So it's sort of keeping the movement of the water so that they become quite sort of muscly, but also
so the ecosystem itself.
It's a really nice
close
ecosystem.
To wild.
Yeah. You've got to be careful with Scottish salmon these days, depending on where you're buying it, because there is a lot of lice on these salmon, in the farms. And they will obviously give them various different lice treatments, antibiotics, that type of thing, to get rid of that kind of disease, that type of lice. So
in that case,
that can be farmed.
I'm better off doing wild or organic.
Yes, wild or organic. And then like going to the fishmonger and just buying what's good, that's been caught that day. We live near Hastings. We're very lucky that we have Sankey's down the road. That I just will buy whatever is in
we have
that morning.
Here, as well in Dumbarton. Yeah. So, do you believe in cheat meals? Should we cut ourselves a slack once in a while?
I think all food should be enjoyed in moderation. But like when you eat healthily, you just generally become more accustomed to like eating with flavour. And so, like what would be a cheat meal for me? Okay, stopping off at McDonald's for like, on the way on a service station. I have done it recently when I took my daughter to university a couple of years ago, Swansea. On the way back, I think we stopped, and I really didn't enjoy it. And so to me, a treat or cheat or whatever we want to call it, it doesn't feel like a treat. It actually feels like...
Because you're so used to healthy food now.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy life when I switched to keto. It was such a pain, but with time, I learned to discover how it affects me in a nice way. The vegetables, the protein, and the good fat, and I've come up with techniques on how to make food delicious and look at variety and how. But now I don't think I will enjoy something that's ultra processed. I will get a headache to begin with.
You then come into the sort of world of psychology when it comes to food. So you come into like the reward. I had a really bad day. I need a treat. I need a glass of wine, for example, or
comfort food.
Yeah, comfort. And I think it's funny because I always listen to the River Cafe podcast. It's one of my favorite podcasts. I love that restaurant. It's my favorite restaurant in the world. And what the question that Ruthie always asks at the very end of that podcast is what food do you go to for comfort? So I think we all have foods that go to comfort, and there's nothing wrong with that. Mine just happens to be chicken soup.
Chicken soup.
Chicken soup.
It's very healthy.
Yeah,
Annie.
I love chicken soup. I love it with butter beans.
Beans.
Yeah, and
butter beans
vermicelli.
are really nice.
Yeah.
My comfort food is nuts.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. But I eat too much. Like even with me saying keto, organic and all this of that, sometimes I consume lots of food. Like keto would be ashamed of me for how much I eat sometimes.
Yeah.
All keto, all organic.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it's always 80-20 as well. I mean, I think when I think about when I talk to patients and they talk to me about, needing to have a chocolate bar as a reward, when I dig into it, it's often that when they were picked up at school by their parents, they had a little finger of fudge or they had like some sort of like treat that they would. And I did it myself when I had my daughters, and we would come back and I would, for independence, I would stop off at this little lovely little deli shop on the way back, and they would go in by themselves because they had the 1p little buckets, and they would choose something from their money that I gave them, and that was an education for them as well as like a time, but. You got to like just sort of distinguish between why am I treating myself and what alternative treats can I have. So I have on a board that I've had up in my kitchen for years that is non-food treats, and it's a list of 10 things that we can do that are treats to us and rewards to us that aren't related to food, and it could be like walking the dog, it could be like having a bath, it could be like going for a massage, it could
pleasurable
be
things to do.
And sometimes, the word treat gets banded around, and it usually is associated with a food item. And it doesn't have to be. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a food item. Yeah. It can be something else. It could be, phoning up your girlfriend and having a good old chat. That's a treat, Yeah.
How about plastics? How do you deal with plastics? Do you get rid of them in your household?
Yes.
How do you do that? Even my organic vegetables come in plastics.
No, they don't. Not Riverford. No. So if they have if they tend to put most of their stuff in paper bags, or it's unwrapped, or if it is in some sort of clear plastic, it's actually made of plant. So they don't use any plastic. All our food that is stored is in glass, always. I have an osmotic water filter system so all the water comes through osmotic, reverse osmosis.
Okay, we're going to put lots and lots of links in the description. Osmosis, everything will go in the description, guys.
Because we've got such an issue with our water system, and we see it on the news all the time, and you can smell the chlorine in the water when there's been a flood or when there's been like excessive rain. You turn the water on, you can smell it, and so I was like, I don't want to drink that anymore. So
how about water bottles? No.
If
they are plastic,
So the thing about plastic is you have to be careful with water bottles because it can leach out what's called xenoestrogens. So I know. It goes on and on and on and on once you start to unpick, but which can mimic estrogen and then connect to your estrogen receptor on your body, and then
And that water system that you have at home, what does it do? It
basically it sends the water through a charcoal system, and then it sends it through another filter system, some sort of sort system. Then it adds the minerals back, so it has an actual sort of natural salts within it, so that you get it remineralized because you want to have your minerals in your water. Okay. But it will strip out the chlorine and the fluoride and all the other things that we don't really want to have all the time in our bodies.
I always wanted to ask someone about this, maybe to justify my messy life. But when she was a small toddler, I never managed with a half clean household. And I read somewhere that we need a bit of dirt for the immune system. How clean or unclean should our houses be to boost children's immune system?
Yeah, unclean.
That fits my calendar. Thank you so much.
The hygiene hypothesis is what you're referring to. And especially since COVID, we've become, anti-back everything. Dr. Axe, he's a really great sort of functional doctor out in the States. He wrote a really good book called Eat Dirt. And I'm not saying that you need to go out and actually physically eat dirt, but, we are so conscious of everything being clean, our children being clean, wiping their hands, not having all the bogies hanging out and, not letting the dog lick their face. And actually all of that, I wouldn't say so much cats. And just there's a side caution with cats, especially with pregnant women. But with dogs, or, other sort of pets, it's actually okay to have a bit of, their microbiome coming in contact with your microbiome, because the microbiome is responsible for training the immune system, which is trained in the gut predominantly, the T cells and the immune cells. And what we want is our as our immune system to be responsive. We don't want it too responsive. We don't want autoimmune disease, right? We don't want it underplaying either, so we're not responding and we're getting infections and sickness. But we want it to be responsive, and we need that to have an exposure to these pathogens to some degree, so that we could create antibodies that fight it.
Hearing you saying that, I must say I'm not a fan of modern day hygiene products at all. Like my toilet is the only thing that I clean with chemicals. Everything else is just white vinegar and water. How do you clean your household?
I'm the same. And I'm lucky to have a cleaner, but my cleaner, she originally would bring her own products, and I'm like, no, it's all right. You don't need to bring your own products. I will supply you with my product. And I'm not going to sort of create everything with. I did go through a process of doing white wine vinegar and water, but it's time consuming. So, but there are some really good products out there. They're not perfect, but a Method product, or I think it's called Acimel or something like that, is a product I use, and I'll just buy, sort of a whole load of different sprays, using bicarbonate soda, to clean out, limescale and that type of thing really helps. It's about moderate, it's about doing the best you can, really. It's not demonizing and saying, oh, no, because sometimes you do need a bit of bleach, although I can't use bleach because I have cesspit. But, generally, you if you need a little bit of, hard action stuff, then okay, fine, in moderation. But I'm protected to their health as well, so I don't want them to be using hard products and being exposed to their toxicity overload. So, it's like my chimney cleaner, his father got very ill with lung cancer. Now he comes and cleans my chimneys every once a year, and he never wears a mask. And I'm always telling him, no, you need to protect yourself, because that's carbon. It's burnt, God knows what going up that chimney that's coming back down, and you're, exposing yourself to it. So, but it's about being as mindful as you can about all the exposure. But just to answer the microplastics, the other thing that I've invested in, and actually bought my goddaughter for her birthday last week, is a stainless steel chopping board.
Oh, yeah. We use wood. No?
Yeah, wood is fine. Fine. It's porous, so some foods, it can be a little bit difficult to clean. But a stainless steel one is great too.
Yeah, not plastics. Rather
than microplastics, because you don't even think about the fact that you're cutting, and that microplastic is coming off the plastic chopping board and potentially into your food. And then obviously your pans need to be, not sort of Tefal based pans. No, because
How do you do them?
Well, you can have stainless steel, or you can have I like green pans. So I use those.
And you do everything wrong.
It can go on and on and on.
But we'll do the best we can.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's talk more about your household.
My
household. Keep chicken.
Well, I don't have any chickens anymore.
Oh, what happened to them?
Well,
you ate them?
I had them for no. I had them for a really long time, and Gloria Gaynor was the last one, and because she was so old, she was probably like 9 years old when she passed, But I stopped having them. I loved having them, and my husband spent a real long time. I spent time having them free range, and I've got about 3.5 acres. And then, of course, the fox would get. Yeah.
How would you stop them from escaping?
They don't. They're so funny. They have like characters. You can call them. So I just call them girls, and then they would all just literally run back into like the pen. They're amazing.
Doesn't matter how many times they call my child to come there.
Really? Yeah, I know. I mean, they were really, really well trained. And I also had my black lab, and I had my black lab all the way through from the point where I had the chickens. So she never scared them, she never chased them, and I'd forget. So sometimes friends would come over like for play dates, and they would have their dogs with them, and my chickens were free ranging, and they would like go after the blooming chickens, and the amount of time I would take chickens out of like some dog's mouth, they were lovely. But I did get rats, and I got rats in the house, and so I have chosen not to continue to have chickens, because I just can't be dealing with it, because I got cavity walls and I can't have rats coming up and down.
Yeah,
it's not nice.
Not a good idea.
It's not nice. Yeah. So, but I do miss them, and I probably will have them again. I do have a very nice chicken run. But yeah.
You also run cookery workshop.
Yeah.
What is the biggest challenge that we face when we try to cook healthily?
I'm always talking about batch cooking, because people don't think, if they're making, let's say you're making your salmon tonight, which you will be. I just know you will. Now that I know you. Would you then put one fillet in there or two, or would you one?
Because
right.
I want my food to be fresh.
Right, so that's fine. But a lot of people, if they're not having just one meal a day, they'll go, okay, what do I want for lunch tomorrow? So let's just cook two. Or like if I'm making chicken, so I would use my oven up, because obviously we have, you know, a crisis when it comes to like having electricity and the expense of it all. So just use your oven. I'll just do a whole load of roasted vegetables. Some of them will be for tonight's dinner. Some of them will be for tomorrow's lunch.
How about nutrients? Will I still retain the nutrients if I eat like leftovers kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe they would be slightly diminished, but it's definitely, you know, if it's a case of like a patient going, I don't have time to make lunch, and so I'm just going to get a meal deal, rather than, well, look, we can make some leftovers you can take to work in a box. Like literally, you just portion it that night in your box with your vegetables and your excess chicken, and then that's in the fridge. Go.
Yes,
you know,
definitely better than fast food.
Yeah. I mean, fresh is always best, but you know, and also construction as well. So like the fridge, there are lots of opportunities out there to get sun-dried sun-blushed tomatoes, like homemade hummus that's organic, you know, grilled artichokes that are in a deli counter. You know, there's loads of things that are already done for you. I'm not a fan of laden coleslaw. I wouldn't ever buy a coleslaw personally. Just too much salt and sugar, and just I'd rather just dress my own, thanks. But you know, there are things that are just simple and are done well, like olives. And so lunch, and I always boil 6 eggs on a Sunday, and then they're in the fridge for the week, so that, you know, like today I've had my breakfast, but I haven't had any lunch. I know that tonight I'm going to go home and go, right, what are we having for dinner? I know I've got 4 eggs already that are boiled. I also know I've got leftover roasted vegetables from last night, and I can combine those with maybe like a can of lentils or beans, and then I can dress it with and then I can put my eggs on the side with a bit of fresh salad. And
that's a perfect meal.
You know, so it's just, it doesn't have to be like super time consuming, and I think time is the biggest reason why people don't choose to eat healthily. I think that and expense, and the other you know is it's too expensive to eat healthily. Well, honestly, Sainsbury's has little like so organic cans of chickpeas, cartons of chickpeas, lentils.
Yeah, they're £1.
They're a pound, and that bulks up.
They're even organic.
Yeah, they're all organic, and they bulk up a roasted vegetable left over from the night before, dressed, maybe with a bit of like, you know, leftover salmon flaked inside, done.
We're all time poor.
Well,
super time
but then we
poor.
think about, well, what else are we doing with our time? And like, maybe scrolling is the other thing we're doing with our time. So like, maybe we just look at our time management a little bit better, and we just actually have a word with ourselves when we say, oh, you know, we're trying to aim for 5 vegetables or fruits a day, or you know, now it should be like 7 or 10. I don't think it's so much the vegetables and the fruits, it's plants. So it could be some fruits and vegetables within that, like number 10, but it could be seeds, it could be nuts, it could be, you know, grains, you know, plants in themselves. It's interesting, like, so Zoe brought out, you know, Tim Spector's Zoe brought out the 30,
Zoe is
the 30 a day.
Glucose monitoring thing?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So they've got in Marks, I think it's Marks Spencer's. No, it's not Marks Spencer's. I think it's Waitrose. They have the Zoe 30 superfood, or what? It's like a mixture of like seeds and nuts.
Is it a list of things?
No, it's actually like something you can buy, and it's like a grain type thing, and you can just sprinkle it onto like yogurts and whatever. And Marks and Spencer's brought out their version, and it's funny because they put like goji berries in theirs, and I bought theirs actually because the Zoe one was really super expensive, and I was like, wow, I'm not paying that. But the Marks and Spencer one is a bit more. I think it's about £6 for a bag, but it's really interesting because they've put things like coriander seed whole in it, and they've put goji berries in it. So it's a very strange mix, and I just don't really know how to use it, because I'm like, do I put it in my yogurt? It feels a bit savoury, or do I put it in my sort of savoury dish, and then it feels a bit sweet with the goji? So it's a strange option.
How about the whole taste of could you were you
crunching on the seeds?
Yeah.
Like I don't mind crunching on the seeds, but I don't really want to crunch on the coriander seeds.
Yeah, because it's savoury stuff, right?
So I know that, you know, obviously we're looking for, you know, 7 to 10 a day.
7 to 10 veggies and plants.
I would say plants.
Okay.
I would say plants.
So that's a deviation
the aim
from
is like
the
really
5.
30 different plants per week.
Okay.
Is the aim.
So it's no longer 5 veggies or 5 plants a day.
I think it's definitely a good guideline for the majority of people that are not wanting to know any more than that. So yeah, let's go with that. But really, for me, it's about visual. So when I talk to a patient, because I belong to the British Association of Nutritional Therapists, BANT, and we have a plate that's and actually I'll send it to you so you can put it on your website. And it's it's cut into quarters, and it sort of shows you what your plate should look like. And it could be a breakfast plate, lunch plate, dinner plate, and it's just an array of different colours. So that's easy. So you say to a patient, just look at your plate. If it looks like it's not colourful enough, or it's got maybe a bit of orange, maybe a bit of green, let's bring in a bit of purple in there, or let's bring in a different shade of green, so that you're getting a little bit more colour, and that's much easier for people to cope with, and rather than saying you've got to eat 10 a day.
Which I don't usually even have 10 veggies a day in my fridge.
No. 10. So plants though, would you have? You got your nuts. You have different types of nuts. You wouldn't just have what almond nuts you'd have.
A variety of nuts.
Variety of
and
nuts. Maybe 3 or 4 different types of nuts.
So that's included.
Yeah.
Why are colours important? Is it just in terms of variety, or maybe colours reflect certain ingredients?
Yeah, they do. So they're phytonutrients. So they're antioxidants. They are polyphenols. So they and flavonoids, we call them. So beta carotene is what will make something orange or yellow, like a squash or carrot, which is converts to vitamin A. Beta carotene, which is why it's good for your eyes to eat carrots. Anthocyanins, which are purple in colour, so you're going to get those in blueberries, blackberries. You're going to get those in purple sweet potatoes, which I'm really eating a lot of at the moment. You've got sulforaphane, which is in broccoli. Interesting with that one, because actually when you cut the broccoli and injure it, by actually cutting it prior to cooking it, it releases an enzyme that makes the sulforaphane even more potent. It's just a hack. So I always, whenever I have broccoli, I always cut it first. And it's interesting about broccoli because, again, people don't eat the stem.
I do.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't.
Okay.
So just take the florets out. But it's like,
cut
that stem, maybe just shave it a little bit, and then just make those florets much longer.
Yeah, and I just, it's a matter of cooking it slightly more. But I do it. But here's the dilemma I have. Do I steam, bake, or fry my vegetables in order to retain the most nutrients that I could?
The most nutrients will be retained with steam. Yeah.
I like the taste of butter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the truth. I will roast vegetables off though. And the fact that we're eating an array of vegetables and it's covered in like really good extra virgin olive oil, I'm happy with that. I know that it won't be as nutrient dense as if I was to steam it, but I don't know if you've ever had roasted broccoli, but it tastes delicious.
Really?
Yeah.
It wouldn't burn
it slightly catches, but you know what? It tastes like, that Chinese seaweed that you get, which isn't seaweed. It's just cabbage. But let's pretend it's seaweed. That it tastes like that. Delish. Yeah, but no, I would say probably like a steam is best. Some people struggle with raw vegetables, so I think when you do steam vegetables, it breaks the cellulose wall, so it makes it just a bit more digestible for a patient who struggles with digestion.
Interesting. It's impossible to find a salad dressing on the market with no sugar.
Yeah, I would never even buy it.
Yeah.
I'd rather go olive oil, salt and pepper, and just be done. But you can make a nice sesame, like unami, sort of, sesame oil, tamari, which is gluten-free, soy sauce, and then a little bit of like rice wine vinegar, a little bit of just chili, and then you've got a really nice dressing there.